Awesome. We are in another podcast episode on A Podcast, your host, Stephen Maxted. And today we have Jordan Labelle, founder at Evergreen Growth Collective. Jordan, thanks for making time today to be on. I'm excited to get in here because it's kind of like talking about some of the other experiences that we get to interact with on this side of the podcast in businesses. And let's start off by passing it over to you to tell a little bit about yourself, your story, and what you're doing today.
For sure. Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me on the podcast, Stephen. So my name is Jordan Labelle. I'm the founder at Evergreen Growth Collective. And this has really been the culmination of a journey over the last 15 years coming out of school. I went to Asper School of Business here in Manitoba, took a major in marketing and small business. So I knew right from day one, owning a business was in my cards. I just had, years and years of imposter syndrome to work through first of I didn't know enough to have my own business. So I kicked around a little bit with some photography, some painting, got a couple jobs in like your traditional hydro company, manufacturing, some marketing and assessments and stuff like that. Then really hit my stride when I found a tech company to get involved with called Bold Commerce here in Winnipeg about 9-10 years ago now. And I joined as employee 28. We grew to over 400 people. We brought in revenues over $40 million annually. We had a couple of rounds of investment, which was really awesome. And I got to lead a team of 25 people as the head of product management. And essentially what product management is your quintessential jack of all trades, master of none, where you got to speak every language in the business to understand what to go build, including customer and marketing and finance and HR and you name it, developer. And you translate all that into what you go build. And that's when I kind of found my stride of this is it. And I loved doing it in tech, but I thought, what if you take the same approach of product management, of being able to talk in all the different languages and brought it to any business and treated the business like your product? And so it got me thinking of there's so many entrepreneurs out there who are an amazing specialist. They went to school for massage therapy. They went to school for mechanic repair, or you name it. They start a business because they're great at what they do, but they know a ton about the thing they do and not so much about the business and how to run it. And so they get successful. They end up finding themselves working 50, 60 hours a week, maybe 80, hopefully not any more than that. But there's money coming in. They have customers, but they are so stressed, so overwhelmed, don't know what to do next. That's where we come in. We work with them to help be like that business growth advisor, working as a peer with them on their business, helping them figure out of everything they could be doing, what do they focus their time and energy on? How do they find the best skill sets to apply? And how do they grow, not just like in a year to, exit the company or sell it, but over the course of 5, 10, 20, so they can make money while owning this business over a long period of time. So sustainable growth. And that's what we do. So we have a roster of clients that we help. We kind of take a look at where they have needs and help guide them to success. And then the collective piece is getting to work with lots of great people who are specialists. So when they need a developer, designer, HR specialist, we know people in almost every profession that we can go and play matchmaker with to make sure that the client gets what they need and the specialist can help where they can. So it's been really great to help more entrepreneurs succeed. It's in our website. It's on our mission statement. That's what we're after. Just how can we help them create better, more long-lasting businesses?
Awesome. I love that recap. And what a cool experience you had at Boulder. They used to be just around the corner from where I'm at. I've now, quite a few folks that have had great experiences working there over the years. And that must have been a very exciting journey leading up to where you're at today. I can only imagine.
Yeah, I've never learned more faster.
That is very awesome. Now, okay, so where you're at today with helping entrepreneurs, what's a common thing that you see folks missing initially? Is there one, or is there a couple that you often see folks come in your doors and are like, hey, I don't know what to do with this, or they don't even know what they're missing in some cases?
Yeah, I think that's the key right there. Is most people don't know what they don't know. It'd be the same as if I went to go, try to be a massage therapist. I'd have no idea what I'm doing or where to start. And it'd be silly to think that I could know that, right? In the same way, like they're experts in their craft and they're now doing this new thing. They're no longer only the specialist they were before. They're now a business owner, which is a whole new world. And there is no one book. There's no one course. There's no like rule book to be a good business owner. There's
Yeah.
many, many, many different perspectives on what that means. And so often what we find is they don't know what they don't know, and they're trying to do a little bit too much of everything. So they feel like they got to do it all because they keep hearing new pieces of advice that you've got to be on TikTok, you've got to be business cards, you got to be going to events, you've got to be fill in the blank. They've got to be doing it. And so you find business owners who are doing like 2 hours in so many different categories, working 60 hours a week, saying like, why does anybody do this? This is awful. When really they've overcomplicated it for themselves. So we try to first simplify it back down to what's most important to making the business successful. Where are the bottlenecks or the big constraints right now that are really hurting your growth or your ability to just use your time more effectively? And that's typically where we start. It's like a time and capacity problem more often than not before it's a more sales or more customers problem. That'll come like once we solve capacity.
Right.
But it usually starts with, I don't know what I don't know. And I feel like I'm doing everything, but nothing's happening.
Yeah. No, I could very relatable for even our own business in some ways, but a lot of folks that
Yeah.
we work with on the marketing side and folks that we have on here. I just spent a minute from the prior recording connecting someone with someone
Oh,
because
no way.
initially
Nice.
all their problem. Yeah, so it was kind of a funny moment that just happened, outside the episode that we recorded here. But no, and within your team today, what does your business look like from that perspective? You guys have like an office? Is it virtual? I know that there's always like the hybrid concept, I think, floating around out there as a general.
Yeah.
But what does it look like for you guys today?
So right now we're totally remote because we have someone out on the West Coast. We have two people out in Calgary and myself here in Winnipeg. And a lot of our collective members are spread across North America, just everywhere. So
Right.
we are remote first for sure. But we do, we kind of have a mindset that we still want to make that human connection, right? Like at the end of the day, coworkers do work together, but people are the ones behind coworkers, right? Like you're still a person. So you got to have
Yeah.
lunch with people. You got to grab a drink. You got to just like understand who they are as another human being. So we try to get together at least once every 3 months somewhere. We try to tie it to an event or something like that we can go and do some networking, but have a day for team. And we
Right.
keep it in different spots. So sometimes I'll go to Calgary. Sometimes they'll come here. Sometimes we'll go to a different place altogether. But the idea is that once every 3 months, we get to see each other in person and actually like sit down and talk as human beings and not just squares on a computer screen.
Yeah, there's always a little bit of that can wear down over time on
Yeah,
the quality piece, right? There's only so much body language you can read off people and truly understand them, on the
exactly.
psychology. So
Yeah,
very
but
cool.
the upsides are great. I mean, being able to work with people no matter where they are, that's no longer a limiting factor, makes working with the right people so much easier versus trying to like find the
Right.
best person geographically close enough to make it work. Just
Yeah.
opens up your options a lot more.
Oh, yes, very agreed. Then you're definitely finding the right person for that right job. Might take them, less time, less resources to do that with the right people in those roles. And there's
Totally.
lots of options today too, right? There's different virtual team
Yes.
or places that can help connect folks within those environments.
Yeah,
So
yeah, your options for solving problems have never been more vast. You've got like software,
yes,
you've got automation, you've got AI, you've got freelancers, contractors, full-time, part-time. Like there's so many ways to solve the problem. So it's
yeah,
more a matter of like which problems are worth solving. And then the solution, you just experimentally find the thing that works best for you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
What kind of companies are in like lightly touch on this maybe as an overall? I don't like poke in one direction with this, but is it the types of companies that you're working with, or what does that variety look like for um, you guys today?
Yeah. So it's funny. We have a pretty wide variety of companies because I think my thought going into this business was that businesses are mostly the same as each other with a little bit of difference. So the difference is typically the thing that they actually go and sell or serve. And so
Yeah,
we're primarily service-based businesses. That is the one common factor across all of them versus like a retail or physical goods.
right.
And that's because I believe a lot of what we can offer is understanding the relationships and the connections between people in a business. And so service-based lends really well to making stronger relationships and making those more valuable. But we have people, again, we have massage, we have a florist, we have some cleaning, we have some technology, we have some consulting, we have some auto mechanic. So it really like across the spectrum of traditional business to more cutting edge business. And the great part is a lot of the concepts just they're similar in each industry, and our job is to figure out how to apply these techniques and tools to everyone's unique situation. So it's more of a tailored approach than it is like a one size fits all.
Right.
But we let them be the expert in their industry, their service, their whatever that they do, that they're the craftsperson in. And we just help build the systems around that to make sure that their life gets easier, they can grow successfully over time. But it's the common factor is really like those service industry or service related businesses, and the founder has to be involved. We love working with like those, we call them technical founders, even if they're not like a developer, but it's the same idea. Like a founder who knows and loves their craft so much, but maybe doesn't know the rest of the stuff that needs to go along with it. Perfect. Like focus on being great at what you're great at. Let us help with the rest of the stuff.
Absolutely. Now, how often, I'm going to break down an acronym here just in case, but
Yeah.
customer relation management tools. It's like the back end of a lot of companies, big, small, medium, should have, in my opinion. I used to, when I worked for corporate America stuff, it was like standard protocol that we had, our CRM in place, but I was working with other companies on our end. Sometimes it's not as common. How often are people coming in with that? Or is it new news when sometimes you have to bring that to the forefront with them? And what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's so funny because it's so true. But for any of my clients who end up listening to this, they're gonna. I talk to them lots about how often you talk with your customers, and so having a way to track it is like so important. And for some people, it's like, hey, let's just use Google Sheets for now because let's get out of our own way. Let's not overcomplicate. Let's figure out how we want to do it first, and then we'll move on. But you're totally right. If we don't have a system to kind of capture that knowledge, it just sits in someone's head, which then just creates a whole new problem. And it makes it a lot easier for us to help when we can pull out the data that defines what the business is currently doing. Data is great for finding where the problem lies. Then you need to go in and put your investigation hat on to see why the data is like that. But a CRM is a great way to help map out where the problems might lie or where the opportunities are. And then you can go and dig in and figure out a bit more. The better data you record, the easier it is for you to get the answers you need out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess within that too, what are other common, I guess, like things that you like as you're unpacking them, like you mentioned, you're not going to come in with one size fits all approach to this stuff, but like general things like CRMs. Are there other tools that you try to integrate early on to do with like finance or like bookkeeping tools that are often overshot, I think, sometimes, but what does that look like?
Yeah, we commonly end up one of the first things we try to get off the owner's plate or the founder's plate is just the bookkeeping. Typically, and again, if you're still doing your bookkeeping, you're not alone. I'd say that's a lot of founders hold on to that for like way too long, and it's a very inexpensive save of hours. Like reinvesting your time into something else versus bookkeeping is almost one of those no-brainer type things. But lots of people put it off, and I get it. You want to stay, you want to see the money coming in and out. You want to be really close to it. You don't want to let your hands off of it. But that's definitely one. CRM or some way to track customer data is definitely needed. We also look at just like the first question we always ask is like, what's the goal of your business? Some people it's growth, like they want to grow team size, they want to grow reach, they want to grow volume of work that they do. For some people, it's like, I want a lifestyle solopreneur style business with supportive people, but not necessarily employees. And so we need to know what we're measuring for first. But those measures are, I'd say, are another piece that we bring into every business of like, once we know what's important, then we can make sure that we have measures in place to start collecting the data to help tell us if we're on track or not. And that those measures and that data looks different for every business, but without it, we can't really help guide you if we don't know where we're going. So making sure there's a metric system or some sort of measurability into the business on those important aspects is like little steps at a time. We don't go and find metrics for the entire business, but if we know they want to grow and build team members, then we're going to have metrics that show, our growth rate of revenue, our ability to bring in new work, our lead flow, our conversion rates into clients, all that kind of data we need to start mapping to see when do we need our next person. So we need to start planning for our hires and planning for systems and all these kinds of things. So a measurement system is something that like looks different every time, but absolutely, again, has to be there for us to be able to show that we're making progress in the ways that we want to.
Yeah. Well, and it's something that I hear often. We're going to take a little bit of a tangent here, but
Absolutely. I love it.
some folks in business where they're like, oh, I'm so busy, I couldn't take on, more business. And it's all either like, there's no CRM, it's up here and it's in a notebook.
Yep.
I'm thinking on the service side, a little bit, maybe even leaning towards more blue collar style work. What would you say to someone like that in business that, they are making good money? There's fundamentally, nothing wrong with the way that they're doing it, but both could probably like see like this right away. There's like ways to relieve, different pain points maybe in the business. But what would you say to someone like that that's in the weeds, maybe listening to this right now, and they think it's all good, but there's areas there? What would you comment to them?
Yeah, those are my favorite clients. When you have
Yeah.
enough work that your main problem is a capacity problem, that's actually like the ideal time for us to get involved. Any earlier where you're still trying to like bring in enough clients to get busy or to get consistent, we can
Yeah.
help, but you're probably still looking for product market fit a little bit of like making sure your offer is something that your market really wants and you can sell it often. But once you get to the point where you figure that out and now you have your client roster is full, you're busy, and you're starting to feel like you don't have time to take on any more, that's where we can come in and leverage like all of those little opportunities in your business where you can better leverage people's time. And it doesn't even need to mean hiring more people. Sometimes we can come in and just like optimize the way the business is currently operating to generate its current results, free up time to reinvest into the business without any additional spend, and then go either make the current customers more valuable, bring in new different types of customers, look for ways to partner up with adjacent businesses that solve a different part of the same problem your customers have. There's just so many ways that like once you have customers coming in and paying you and your time is the constraint, that's when the creativity really gets to like we can find some high leverage opportunities that are like very small investment and very big return or outcome. So I love getting in there. I'd say my recommendation is if you don't work with us, try to find a way to like book some time in your calendar to step back and do your best to come look at your business from the perspective of like, if this wasn't my business and this was someone else's, what
Right.
might I see that looks like, why do they do it this way? Or, I wonder why so much time is getting taken up over here. Try to ask yourself those questions as if you don't have to live in it every day. It's hard to do, which is why, having someone else come in to ask these questions makes it a bit easier. But that's
Yeah.
what I'd start doing because oftentimes it's just you've been doing something the same way for the last year and it's been generating good results. So you don't think to change it. And when you look at it, it's like, hey, that's like 20 hours a week going into this thing that, like, if we actually gave it some thought and put a couple of hours of effort into it, we could probably get it down to like 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for those tasks that you mentioned before that you may still be trying to do as the sole uh, driver
Yeah.
in the seat there. It could be something as easy as hiring that off, or where your time is worth a little bit more. You could be spending more time there or enjoying your own time, perhaps.
Yeah.
If
So
that's
I, actually, I have a great example. I just thought of this while we were talking there, but I was just talking to someone about their proposals. So they're looking to increase their business next year. So I asked them
yeah,
the question of like, how many proposals get accepted right now? And they said about 80%. And I say, okay, it's a great indicator that your prices are probably a little on the lower side if you're getting 80% of the people to say yes to you. And then so I was asking, what would it look like to increase your prices? And then we started looking at how many proposals they had to do. And it turned out their proposal process was like 7 hours for the proposals. And I'm like, okay, like that in combination with your prices, probably I can see why you're winning 80%. That's great. But what if we could increase prices,
right.
shorten your proposal time, and then just take more proposals? So you'd still end up doing the same amount of like jobs every year, but you're going to do them for more money and maybe you'll win 50%. But if we cut your proposal time all the way down, you can fit in, we did the math and we could fit in more than twice the number of proposals they were currently doing at less time than they were currently spending on proposals. And it was going to almost double their business.
Wow.
So again, it's just like, and it's no extra work. It's actually like they're going to spend less hours net, doubling their business essentially with just offering better options of their pricing, increasing their pricing a little bit, and being comfortable with the fact they're probably going to see their close rate go down to like 50%, but
Yeah.
they're still net ahead because they're spending way less time in the proposal phase to get these 50% of people to sign on for more money. And so the same amount of work in season
Yes.
gets them way much more profit. So again, just like a shift in perspective of like, how do we move the time around?
Yeah.
Now we have like much more cash coming to the business. No extra hires, no extra services, no contractors. Exact same business they had today. Just restructuring the way we spend our time makes more money.
That's amazing. Well, I was going to ask you for like a really good example of something that you've helped someone do something, but
There you go.
that was literally the next one I have queued up here. But outside of, I guess, the monetary win, what would be a really good
Yeah.
example of a win that you've had helping someone in their business?
So we actually measure our what we want to do as a company is we want to help more entrepreneurs succeed. So we asked ourselves, like, how do we know if they're succeeding? That's a vague statement, and purposefully so. But we measure it in three ways. We measure it in, like, one is their operating profit increasing. So revenue going up isn't enough. We need to know their actual, like, after expenses profit is going up. So if that's true, they're growing in some way. Is there stress and disposable time increase? So stress going down, disposable time going up. So disposable time meaning time that's not accounted for, that you can choose how you want to use it, whether that's vacation, whether that's reading a good book, whether that's reinvesting into the business, but you get to choose what you do with that time versus being forced into it. So
Right.
things that take away disposable time are like fighting fires, phone calls at random times because your business is something happening with it. Feeling you have to work 60, 80 hours a week to just keep up. That all takes away from your disposable time and increases your stress. So we need to see that improving. And the last thing is, if the entrepreneur has a team of people, we need to see their people being fulfilled, because they can't be more successful if their team is a bunch of mercenaries, essentially, of like they're getting paid well enough and they'll stick around while they're getting paid well enough. But as soon as things go a little bit sideways, they're out looking for the next job.
Yeah.
Instead, our view is if we can invest in their people where they have fulfillment in the work they do. So we're finding their, like, zones of genius or expertise, and we're leveraging that as much as we can. We're making sure they're compensated properly for the work that they're doing. And so that sometimes means paying above market. That sometimes means bonus structures. That sometimes means all sorts of things. But we tie it to, like, they're contributing to get that kind of success, and that they also have balance in their professional and personal lives. So they also have disposable time and lower stress. We
Right.
believe, like, if those three things are true, entrepreneurs are being more successful, and they should continue to be more successful. And if we see any of those measures start coming down, that's when we know we have maybe a bit of a problem we need to jump into.
Very awesome. Totally agree
Yeah.
with all of that. All of the
Yeah.
above. I think maybe sometimes easier said than done, though, to create that environment to have
Oh,
folks that truly engaged and want to be there for more than compensation. But hopefully, doing well there as well is always a major benefit for
yeah.
the team. Uh,
I,
uh,
and that's probably the toughest one for us to impact change on. That's like a cultural, organizational shift that needs to happen sometimes. So
yeah,
we're happy to help guide and find specialists to bring in when needed. But that's kind of like the three levels. Like, first, operating profits, that's like the most direct application we can have where we can help improve. But we don't want to lose track of, like, it's not operating profits at the cost of everything else. So we want to make sure of some balancing factors of, like, the entrepreneur themselves has to be their personal well-being needs to improve over time. And then
yeah,
as a third stage, harder for us to impact, but still valuable, is how are their people in the company doing, and how committed and, like, secure do they feel there, where they feel like they have growth potential, they're learning, they're challenged, but they're not being, burnt out or used to generate the profits. They're part of creating this great business.
How do you measure that within companies without giving away any secrets and stuff? Is it surveys? Is it just doing interviews and getting kind of like energy checks on them? Or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mix. So
Yeah.
operating profits clear. We work with their financials. We can kind of just see, is it going up? That's part of working with us. We can talk about it later too, but we actually tie our success to their success as well. So we both need to know how operating
Awesome.
profits are doing. Um, but then their time and stress is a little bit more like conversational. Every month we do a check-in of, like, what's your burnout level on a scale of 1 to 10. And so we want to monitor that, because if we see it creeping up, we need to know we need to find ways to help take more off their plate, to give them more breathing room to bring it back down. That's like our, boiling water gauge. If they hit a 10 and it boils over, we got a stovetop to clean up now. So let's try
Yeah.
to keep them down from that point. And then the team stuff really comes down to surveys, to conversations, to making sure we have room for things like continuing development within the company. And that's, like, again, like I said, this one's the hardest one to impact and measure.
Yeah.
But by making it like a part of our three most important metrics, it makes us ask the questions that lead to understanding, like, how could we measure it in this given company, in this given culture, Do they have
Right.
tools they already use that can help us give an indication, whether it's like an indicator, whether it's tracking up or down, that then we can improve with more questions? Do we
Yeah.
need to implement something lightweight because we don't want to add more to everyone's plate? That's the last thing anybody needs, is another thing to do on their plate. But yeah, that one's the hardest one to like. There's no blanket for everybody. It's really each business we gotta dig in and see what that means on a case by case basis.
Interesting. And is that ever a struggle? I guess this is a random thought that's popped in my head here. When
No,
you're
I
looking
love it.
at like ways to improve, and there's many ways to automate different things. Um, within the process, there ever comes a point where you're kind of like your roles, got to change, or we can kind of replace it with this tech.
Yeah,
Today, so that's a tricky thing to come across and then bring up.
yeah,
But be a stress reliever and financial win too.
yeah,
But can't replace people in every avenue either, because that becomes a balance, you know?
y- yeah. And I'm of the mindset like when I talk with people about hiring, I almost always encourage like hire for uh, a track record of learning and growth. Like, can they change, adapt, and learn as a person? Is that their behavior? Where if they run into something they don't know, what's their response? Is it I don't know, or is it I don't know yet? And so you want to hire the people who are like I don't know yet, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
And then you also want to be clear on like what where where do their natural talents lie, or their interests, right? So if they are interested in an area and you can see that they're talented in that area and they have the drive to continue growing,
yeah,
then generally you don't ever have to get rid of a person, because even if you get software to replace part of what they do as a job, really what you're doing is freeing them up to do more of the high value stuff that they probably couldn't do before. So again, it's just a perspective shift of like that
yeah,
automation or software just cuts out like the garbage stuff they had to do that like they probably didn't want to do, and it was probably a waste of their time doing, but it was part of the job. And so now if you free that up, you can let them spend more time in their zone of genius of like, okay, now that you have an extra like 10 hours a week, what could you do that's like way higher leverage than what you were doing before? So you don't see the financial benefit right away because you still pay them for the full-time salary or whatever
right.
you're paying them, but you're going to see even more than you would have gotten by cutting that cost through the impact they're going to have by better leveraging their time. So it's just again mindset shift, perspective shift of how do we better use the person now that we've automated the easy stuff or the
Yeah,
repetitive stuff.
absolutely. No, I think that's a great run through and great angle to have, a perspective of when you're chatting with these folks and hiring, from that.
Yeah.
And okay, so how about from the straight up number side of things? What's been one of the biggest wins that you've taken a company that you've worked with, and after looking at different dynamics and stuff, what's that looked like on the number side of things for that biggest win?
Yeah, I'd say one of the best ones was really like that example I was giving before of it was just like a really cool experience to we spent, probably a couple months working through the details and really diving in to understand the business. But when we finally had that realization where we got like to that root problem of understanding how this is all coming together, and we looked
Yeah,
at how we could like just reconfigure the use of time, that was the craziest part. It's like most people think in order to grow, you need to spend either more time or more money. And
yeah,
this was a case where like we actually could spend less time, and we had like we were already turning away leads because the person was too booked in their on season. So we
right.
had excess capacity and interest, and we had not enough capacity and execution, and there wasn't the desire to hire somebody. So all it was just a reconfiguring of time and how we used it to take the exact same business model and then essentially double the revenue. And honestly, a lot of it's going to come with the same or better profits now as well. So that was one example of just like again, I just love it so much because it
Yeah,
breaks people's perception of like I need to spend or time or money in order to grow my business. Not
yeah,
always. And cases like that won't always exist. So I also don't want to like,
yeah,
gold coat everything of not everyone we can just go reconfigure your time and double your business. But
yeah,
I think the real big thing is the more we can step back and ask the question of like, what's important? What's the root problem here? How do we like put our effort into something big that if we solve that, we see like outsized returns instead of incremental, like, oh, if we optimize this little piece, we'll see a 10% increase. That's great. But I want to
yeah,
see like, where's the big unlocks? Like, where's the big step we can take or the free step we can take where like it's very minimal time investment. And we start now bringing in like a partner revenue stream of referrals we're making out to other people. Takes very little effort. You're better serving your clients. They get a more complete solution and you still see more revenue come in. So things like that are some of my favorites. In terms of like actual growth, a lot of it is people will come in with like a personal goal they've set of they want to grow the business to, like, maybe they start at 200, they want to start to go to 300. And just being able to map out, like, we like to bring it down to like its simplest form of how can we get you from where you are today to where you want to go. And like, we can just really start breaking down like exactly what are the steps needed to get there. And there's some experimentation along the way. Like we aren't kidding ourselves. We don't know all the answers and we don't have, the plan for everybody.
Yeah.
But the more time we spend kind of breaking it down to its simplest form of like, if this is where we want to go, here's some of the levers we can pull that we think are going to have big effects. And then we can start running experiments just to test against. And with that mindset, it's an inevitability versus like a can we grow by 50%. It's just
right.
We know there's ways to do this based on watching many other businesses do it. Not just a matter of like, how do we find the experiment that works for this business to make it happen.
Absolutely. And what, maybe getting like specific for your business, like what does the business itself look like when someone comes in and chats with you? It sounded like there might be a point here where you're working together with folks, like it's a win when they win type scenario. If I could inquire here a little bit, share what you can or will, I guess, out of the gates here. But
absolutely. Yeah, we've done so much thinking about this because, again, I'm trying to do my own perspective shifts to myself, which is honestly sometimes the hardest thing to do is do what you do for others for yourself. It's wild. Anyways, we finally got enough of a step back where we realized we are after more entrepreneurs succeeding. So our old model was we charged them a monthly retainer fee to have access to us and we helped them grow. And we liked it, but we knew it wasn't great. Something just felt like wrong with it. And we guaranteed our work. So if someone wasn't happy with a month, they could just say like, hey, I don't think I got enough value out of that month. And we'd refund them the money. It didn't really happen, but we just offered it to make sure like there was no risk in it for them. So we want to put our money where our mouth is. Yeah. But we kept on thinking like we can do better than this for both of us, right? Like we can have a better upside while giving them a risk-free experience or a really low risk experience. And so we've recently actually shifted it to a model where there's a couple of paid engagements up front to kind of like do some dating, see if like we're going to be a match. And if they have a business that we think we can help, and if they like our style and approach. And so we do some initial helping them out, fight some fires. We do some assessment with them. We do a bit of a roadmap for them so that even if they don't work with us, we still want to set them up for the right direction. But past that point, we can kind of come to a decision. Is this a client we're willing to invest in? And do they want to have us around to help them grow? If yes, the rest of the way they work with us is just a percentage share of the operating profits that we help them grow to. So we kind of like measure where they've currently been growing, the current average month, and we map that out for the next 6 to 12 months. And then we say for every dollar that we can help you bring in over and above that, that's when we start making money. So if you have a month where you make less than you planned to make, we make $0.
Right.
But if we go 10,000 above where you were going to go, we get a percent of that 10,000. So it's only on money you wouldn't have had without us. So it makes it easier for them of like, there's no risk. If they run their business the way they're running it today and we can't actually help them, they don't owe us anything. But if we come in and we find a way to double their business by rearranging their hours, then yeah, we get a percentage share of all that extra that we're bringing in.
Very awesome. That's a very cool model. And it seems like a very potentially healthy way to manage that too, because some people need that help before they may have the balance. And if the whole mission is to help folks grow, that makes a lot of sense to me. So good on you guys for figuring that out.
Thanks. Yeah, it just felt like then we're aligned, right? We both want the same thing, and we're both upfront about how we benefit from it. Like they don't have to worry about overpaying for advice that they might not actually get the right use out of or might not see the right results from. And we're not capping ourselves from if we come up with a really great solution to something and help them grow bigger than either of us thought possible. We're not saying like, oh, that was still the flat retainer amount worth of advice. So now it's just we're both on the same page of like, we both want this thing to grow as much as possible. If either of us see an opportunity, now we're incentivized to work it to the bone to figure out how to get the most out of it versus, hey, we gave you our number of hours investment for the retainer, so we're done now this month. That just felt wrong. So
yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, there's definitely like that healthy balance within any business relationship. You're always kind of evaluating, trying to figure out, like what was it worth it? Like maybe some months more so than others, and that's where like the reverse is kind of
Yeah.
levels out. This one seems very true to being very, fair throughout the relationship. So yeah, big fan of that. That sounds very cool. Anyone who's listening and is interested off of that point, I'm sure that there's someone that is going to hear this and be like, that sounds wicked. We gotta, reach out and get a hold of the team here. And on that note, what is the best way, like segueing right off that, what is the best way for someone to get a hold of you or the team? How can they
Yeah.
find?
Yeah. So we have our website, www.evergreengrowthcollective.com. It'll be in the the show notes, I'm sure, because it's a mouthful to type out and easy to click, not to type.
Yeah.
On the site though, we offer, so I'm happy to chat like 15-20 minutes to anybody just to like get to know them and see, hey, like what's going on? Do I think I can help you? If not, who do I think could, or what do I think could? So again,
Yeah.
my goal is no matter what, whether you can be a client of ours or not, I want to help in some way if I can, even if that's pointing you in the right direction or giving you some like, hey, do this for the next little while and let's touch base in 6 months to see how things are going. So that's like that's anybody who wants to chat. I'm happy to talk business. I could talk business all day, every day, and love every minute of it. We also have what's called a phone a friend session. So we pictured like you're sitting down in the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire chair. You've got a question on the board and you're not sure what the answer is. Like we're that friend you can pick up the phone and call and just be like, hey, this is what's going on in my business. What the heck do I do? Can you just help me work through this? So it's 60 minutes, open agenda, like whatever. We can do a roadmap. We can look at your financials. You can just talk it out with us and we can whiteboard some solutions. Like it's meant to be whatever is burning will help you put the fires out. It's also our first interaction to see like, how do we work together? Do you like this? Do we like this? Do we see potential? And so that session is usually $197. I'm going to have a discounted link to send in the notes as well for anybody who's listening and wants to jump onto one of those. We'll give 25% off, just a little bonus for the A podcast listeners.
Cool.
But that's kind of the first like paid engagement with us is just let's help you put out whatever is of concern today. See if there's a potential fit here. If there is, then we can move on to step 2, which is more like, can we do a deep dive in your business, see where the opportunities are, start road mapping, and look at potential long-term partnership.
Very awesome. And how long do you normally work with teams or leaders? What does that relationship look like?
Yeah, our ideal goal is that we find a way to continue working together forever. We love to be like seen as that board of director or like that partner or peer in your business. So initially we work in 6-month chunks because we want to be reassessing every 6 months because we know you're growing as a business owner as well. So it wouldn't be fair for us to say your growth trajectory when we met is going to be your growth trajectory forever. And so every 6 months we want to reassess and say, okay, if we stepped away now, let's come to a mutual agreement on where you think you'd go, and now reset kind of where we're at play again. Other options we look at are like maybe it's a much smaller percent, but our touch is like a quarterly kind of check-in to do some planning with you every 3 months as opposed to like a monthly engagement. And so we want to try to be flexible as the business needs. So maybe you're going through a period of, hey, we don't really want to grow as much right now, but we just want to keep things stable for a little bit. Great. Let's meet every 3 months just to make sure no big fires are coming up. We'll drop our percentage way down because our involvement's way smaller. But let's not like stop as a client, because then we can stay up to speed on like how the business is going. If all of a sudden something comes up partway through that 3-month period, we're not like, we haven't filled the roster spot with somebody else now. You're still one of our clients that we're thinking about. If we see an opportunity or a new contact we get in touch with, we can still play matchmaker. But yeah, the first engagement 6 months, and then we kind of play it by ear after that and see. Ideally, we'd like to continue working with them for as long as we can.
Awesome. And where are your clients located? It sounds like, I mean, you're able to do a lot of work virtually and stuff. Are they, where does that reach go to?
Yeah, so right now we're across North America. We got some West Coast, we got some Central, we got some East Coast, we got some US. We actually even have one client who's technically based in Canada, but is operating out in Europe, which is a bit of a stretch for us, I'll be honest. Like there's a lot of learning we got to do, and like, so they're helping be the expert in like any local requirements. And so we're still doing the same approach we take with most businesses, but it's really like, how do we still build the same systems like lead acquisition and good client experiences and making the most of every person who comes through, just in a place we don't know as much about in terms of like local customs or things along those lines. But the possibilities are kind of endless, as long as, again, we like to do our due diligence to make sure we truly think we can help. We don't, like I said, we've built our business in a way that like we won't get paid if we can't help. So if we don't think we can, we're incentivized to tell you we can't and find you someone who can. But yeah, we've taken clients all across North America, and now just kind of somewhat branching into Europe, but cautiously.
Cool. No, that's awesome. And just gives everyone kind of a scope here of, if you're listening, you're from a different region, doesn't always have to be local here too, where, we're based out of, if that shows up on LinkedIn or something. But
Exactly.
yeah, very good. Jordan, is there anything else that you want to mention about the company, the brand, yourself?
I think the biggest thing I want to mention is just we talked about this a bit right in the intro, or not in the intro, before we got on live when we were just chatting, hanging out. I've just taken so much of a look at like LinkedIn, the way that the job market's been going the last little while. I see the layoffs. I see the people who are open to work. I see the people who are like potentially struggling with what they thought was secure, and now it all of a sudden isn't.
Yeah.
And I believe a lot of people deserve to have like the freedom and control over their income and their time. And I'm not saying entrepreneurship is for everybody. It definitely has its downsides. Don't get me wrong. There are pros and cons to everything. But I just believe more people should consider all the options they have outside of full-time employment, whether it is like fractional employment, whether it is freelancing and contracting, whether it is their own business. I think we need to give more tools and support for people who might want to, but don't have all the skills and things that they need to be successful. And so, again, if you're someone who's thinking about this kind of stuff, I'd love to talk to you. If you're someone who helps with this kind of stuff, I'd love to find ways to make you noisier so people can know you exist. But I just think we're coming into the period of, the economy and the bigger picture where we're going to see more people taking more control over their income and their freedom of time. And so the more people we have around to help support those people and share their expertise and their skill set to find ways to build businesses together, I think we're just going to all be so much better off. Not to just bring it all. We should all be working together, but everyone's got different skills, and to think that anyone can do everything is just insanity. So I think if you're struggling, if you're not sure how to get the next thing done or how to take that next step, just feel comfortable by asking. It's okay to not know. I don't know sometimes about business, and that's the thing I'm most passionate about. But being willing to say I don't know and learn and ask for help, I think is just hugely important.
I think that's fantastic, Jordan. I'm very glad you covered that too. I feel very much the same way. A lot more people should go into their own venture and pursue that. I think it unlocks different parts of the brain, definitely gets you thinking differently about even businesses you go in and visit, or get services from this very day. It's changed a lot about how I, take the value of the relationship, that conversations you have with the business owner are different too. I think back, a number of years, and I think there was more independent businesses. I think we're on a trajectory of maybe a little bit of a cycle where I hope that we do go back, like you're saying. I hope more folks do find the thing that they're passionate about and maybe pursue that a little bit more with some great help along the journey from folks like yourself. Because I think huge value to everything that you chatted about here. We obviously do need people like yourself and your team to be able to help with this, energy around starting your own thing, because you might be good for a period of time, but I compare the business experience a lot to like fitness or working out, and you either get tired of your workouts or whatever the comparison may be. You might have to go to a different gym, get some different advice, or get a new piece of equipment to help you stay energized about what you're doing, even if we may pull that segue all the way across here. But I see so many similarities between the two, and just staying consistent is one of the biggest things. No matter what you're doing, you're going to stay healthy here and the body, everything, while pursuing that, because you don't want to go crazy partway through. It's too easy to get the burnout.
And that's exactly why, like, because I love that analogy of like everyone hits plateaus, right? And everything you do, there's a point that comes where like you've maxed out your ability to figure this out, and what you need is someone to help you on like break through that plateau to the next level. It's totally true. And I just think the more we can all come to terms with the fact that like we're going to be great at certain things and just not have the answers in other places, and that's okay. I think the faster we'll get to asking the right questions, considering the right help, and looking for options that just help us be more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jordan, outside of the website we mentioned earlier, are there other ways that folks can follow the journey? Is there business pages on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook? Do you guys spend much time on social media?
Yeah, that's a great point. We do have an Instagram that we're pretty active on as well, that we're looking to start actively growing. We spent the last month kind of just getting some content on there, not being too noisy, and now we want to get a little bit noisier on there. So Instagram's the same handle, just Evergreen Growth Collective. That's the benefits of having a long name, is it's usually not taken on any platform. So you can find us there. We post pretty much every day. I like to, do some stories on just like some insights or conversations I have with clients. Our posts, you can expect to get some facts, some fun, some interaction. But we genuinely want to find ways to just make success more attainable for more entrepreneurs. And if that comes in the form of free content on our Instagram, fantastic. If it comes through being a client, fantastic. And if it comes through us just pointing you in the right direction, also fantastic. At the end of the day, if you have a business that gives you more control of your income, freedom, and the ability to hire other people and give them a great experience, like, I'm the same way. I think small businesses are we can't be losing them. They got to make a big comeback, and they treat people really well, and that's going to be really important in the next few years.
Yes. Yeah, very agreed on that note there. That's awesome. And Jordan, thanks again for the time today.
Yeah, this has been fantastic.
Yeah,
That flew by.
no, I sent on the chat there. Geez, like, yeah, I feel like we could have taken off here, but we'll call this to an end here shortly. And just want to say, yeah, thanks again for making time to be on here. It's been awesome.
Yeah, great being here. Thanks for having me again. This has been great.
Awesome.